to try to do something very difficult, which is to speak slowly, because the interpreters have to follow me and to interpret it probably. But I see there are not too many persons who need it, so I can go on a little faster. Yes, green vegetables. Okay, this one. Yes. First, one thing about, well, this is of course the commercial in front of every presentation, but we go very slowly through it. We are a company which is trying to survive in the market by selling information, which is a little difficult, but it's possible, I can tell you. We were semi-public before, that was easier, but now it's more interesting. Yes, and this is what I'm going to tell. I have to admit that green vegetables is not a word which we use in Germany for a product line. So I decided that green vegetables are brassicas and leafy vegetables. I heard this morning that here leafy vegetables are more meant with green vegetables. So I go through rather rapidly through the brassica part. Well, if we look at brassica cultivation in Europe, we see that brassicas are not the winners in the segment of fresh vegetables. Cultivation is decreasing in almost all countries. And if we look at it percentage-wise, we can see that especially some countries are losing, for example, France. And I will show, yes?
Excuse me, sorry that I interrupt you. Could you please speak a little bit closer to the microphone?
A bit louder.
Okay, yes, okay, yes.
Passion, you know.
Okay, I have to eat this.
All right, more or less.
Yeah, is this better?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, louder.
Okay, and now to try to look at the screen and also eat this. Okay, yeah.
Challenging.
Yeah, it's challenging, but if it's simple, everybody can do it. Okay, that France is losing in the brassica cultivation, and there's a simple reason for it, because it's mainly cauliflower. And cauliflower is one of the products which are really losing in Europe in consumption. And okay, Brussels sprouts, something typical of Western Europe, high cultivation and also high consumption, but you can also see that it's going down. And this will repeat with most of other brassicas as well. And the three big countries are, yes, the UK, Netherlands, Belgium, and then there's not much left. Okay, cabbage, that's a very typical thing. Yes, it was associated with Germany, but Germany is not really a big cabbage cultivating nation. It's mostly the Eastern European countries, which still have a rather high cultivation and consumption of brassicas. Here, as an example, Poland. And you can see that they still have more than a third of these countries which I have chosen here. And of course, cabbage in each country means something different, because it's a sum of white cabbage, of red cabbage, of Savoy cabbage, of pointed cabbage. By the way, pointed cabbage is the only cabbage which is growing, which is still increasing in consumption and cultivation, but mostly you don't have no data on it, because it will be grouped together with white cabbage. Okay, and then we have cauliflower broccoli, and unfortunately in many countries, including the big broccoli growing nation Italy, it's not separated. And it's not even separated in the panel, so in the consumption. It's difficult, although it should be really separated, it's something different. And broccoli is maintaining, well, it's doing quite well, but it's also, if the overall hectares are decreasing, production is not. Of course, these are surfaces. Okay, and here I have broccoli as a single product there where we do have statistics on it, and we can see it's also not decreasing, but it's remaining stable or slightly increasing. And you can see that it's a big producer there. That is Spain, which really conquered the European markets. And this is one reason why broccoli is now in many northern European countries seen as a winter product. It's really the cheap, I have to say it, it's a cheap standard product for a discount in any middle European country. It would be broccoli from Spain. And here we see French exports of cauliflower, and yes, they are decreasing. Cultivation is decreasing, consumption is decreasing, exports are decreasing. And the opposite, this is Spanish exports of brassicas. Well, in the statistics it simply says coles, so it means all kinds of brassicas, and it's 75 to 80% of that is probably broccoli, the big product from Murcia. And here we can see to which countries they are exporting. And, no legend. Okay, sorry, disappeared. I can just tell you that the big part is United Kingdom, the big blue part. They are a huge importer. Germany should be the one below, then France, and the Netherlands, and then above Britain. Curly kale, yes, it's a specialty usually used for winter dishes, and now all of a sudden with a revival used in smoothies, being so healthy that you cannot stand it. Probably you won't survive it, it's so healthy. But it's used in smoothies, and the secret behind it is that it's 80 to 90% fruit and then 10% of curly kale. So it's green, yes, and it doesn't taste like curly kale, because otherwise you wouldn't drink it. But the typical countries here are, yes, Germany, the Netherlands, and in Germany this cultivation is mostly for processing. It's for deep frozen use. This is something special. I just have to mention it because it's not eaten anywhere else than in Germany and German-speaking countries or neighboring countries, kohlrabi. And whenever it's grown somewhere else, for example, Latina, in Italy, or in Murcia in Spain, it's grown for exports to Germany or neighboring regions. For example, the Czech Republic, Western Poland, a little bit Denmark, Limburg, yeah, all they know it, but the rest, Switzerland, of course, Switzerland is also important. Okay, now leafy vegetables. This looks a little better. It's not going as steep down, but in some it's still going down, cultivation areas. And we see that France used to be, and still is, a huge producer. Be careful, I have no Spanish figures in here in this graph. It would be the biggest one, but the problem with Spanish statistics is that it simply says lettuce, lechuga, and not what it is. But I have figures on that. Okay, here France is rather dominating, and each country is still very different in consumption and in production. This is, for example, France, cultivation in France, and you can see that there are really increasing parts. For example, lamb's lettuce, corn lettuce, also called Valerianella. Yeah. It's increasing in production and consumption in also more parts of Europe, not only in France. But we also see, well, traditional things like romaine decreasing, I think the endives also. And then we have above the Belgian endives, witlof, the Belgian endives, they are produced and consumed in very few countries. It's basically the Netherlands, Belgium, and France. And there they are very important. And they have a high per capita consumption because they are not only used as salads, what other countries do, because they are also used in a cooked form, cooked or stir-fried or whatsoever. Because if you use them raw, of course they are bitter, like all endives, and then the consumption is limited. And it's not increasing. It's in Germany, for example, it's a product of the 70s. So it's kind of dying out. France is also an exporter of salads. In former time, it was a very successful exporter of the standard head lettuce, butter head lettuce, but this is going down. But now other salads, what is here called other salads, are still important, and that is including, for example, lamb's lettuce. And here you can see, just weekly figures of lamb's lettuce exports to Germany. We once had these very detailed figures, and it really contrasts with our season in Germany. So that is one thing. The other thing is that there is a very low summer consumption of lamb's lettuce. It's a bit tricky to grow it in summer. These are leafy vegetables in Germany, and you can see that really that it's now split up. If I would have shown these figures for the 80s, it would have been butterhead lettuce with a big sun, and then a little iceberg, which was beginning then, and now it's really a huge portfolio of different leafy vegetables, lettuces. It's really spreading out. And in Germany, cultivation of lettuces is basically open field. That's different from other countries, for example, Belgium, where it's mostly protected. The Netherlands, the big one here, iceberg. And iceberg is still one of the few open field vegetables in summer which is exported from the Netherlands. Whenever there's a gap in Europe, they will export to that country. Okay, this is protected cultivation of salads in Belgium. And the classic big product used to be butterhead lettuce with pieces of 500 grams, really heavy butterhead lettuce. But this market is disappearing more and more. Okay, spinach is of course grown in all. Whenever you see spinach, the problem is that it's mostly grown for processing. There is an increasing part, but usually not seen as baby leaf, what you would call it now, spinach for fresh consumption. But very often you don't have any figures for that. Okay, I just skip Austria, not too important, but Spain. Here you can see the cultivation is stable, but this doesn't say anything because there's a huge quantity of homegrown romaine lettuce for the interior market, which really doesn't show a clear picture. Italy has a special thing that is the bitter taste. Lots of cichorium in there in the mixture, radicchio, for example, and also other endive types. Well, I showed you the stable production of Spanish salads, and here you have the exports. So with the export-oriented production is really increasing. And it's, lettuce, it simply says lettuce, but the basic product is of course iceberg, but it's diversifying as well. A lot of it is also used for fresh-cut salads in other countries. Okay, here just to show you trends of cultivation in Germany, and if you look at the negative rates, you will find an awful lot of brassicas on the losing side, but also classical butterhead lettuce. And nowadays, I think even, let me see, yes, even iceberg is losing because that was the lettuce of the, well, let's say, the turn of the century. But it's now, it's still dominating, but it's the problem of dominating things that you get bored. Okay, talking a little bit about consumption in some European countries. Cauliflower. There you can see that we had typically a very high consumption of cauliflower in the Netherlands. It used to be number 2 of all vegetables. It's now down to number 5, but it's still in the top 5. It's the only country in Europe that's still in the top 5. But regardless of which country you are looking at, you see that the trend is negative. It's going down. And if we look at broccoli consumption, you don't see that. In Britain, it's even increasing, and that's in line with the Spanish exports to Britain as well. Okay, they also have an interior production, domestic production. Germany is not such a big consuming nation. Cabbage, yes, northern European countries have a higher consumption, Germany, UK, but the tendency is going down. The same with Brussels sprouts, the highest consumption in the producing countries, Netherlands, Belgium, UK, yes, it's a very classical Christmas dish, but also downward trends. Yes, and this is a slide you could look a little longer at, because very often people in marketing look at the age distribution. And generally speaking, it's a good sign if you have a young client, if you have a young age profile. Why is that? People are telling you that the population will all be overaged, so you could also say if people are old, they will consume more. This would mean that every person will change his habits during life according to a prefixed schedule. The other hypothesis is that once you are young, you form your habits and you maintain it more or less during life. Cohort effect, if you're wandering through the cohorts in life. And well, my experience shows me that for making forecasts, the second hypothesis is a little better. That if I looked at products in the 90s, at the beginning of my working experience, the ones who had a young age profile, they were the ones who are growing in later years. So you can see the relatively young profile of broccoli still, so that makes me think that it still is not too bad, the chances. Okay, now leafy vegetables. Here we can see the quantities bought by private households of lettuce, very high in Italy, but Italy has always a very high consumption of all fresh fruit and vegetables. And this is just to illustrate that leafy vegetables in different countries just doesn't mean the same. If you see Germany, iceberg is the standard, and then a little bit of butterhead still remained. Belgian endive is not a real big thing. Lettuce hearts are really gaining, that's mini romana basically. Then lamb's lettuce, it's here in terms of expenditure, not on quantity. Lamb's lettuce is expensive per kilogram, so it's a higher proportion. And rucola, rocket, would not have been there a few years ago. The same for France. Iceberg is nothing. It's a miracle that it even appears there, because it's coming slowly. In the beginning, they rejected it. It was only in fast food chains because they had their own Batavia. And it's still very important in France. Then we have this huge portion of Belgian endive, which, yes, I explained before, because it's also a big producing nation. We have the big portion of Batavia, then all these what we call colored lettuces like Romana, they have a more important role, but lamb's lettuce is not so important as in Germany, although France is a big producer. And here just a comparison with Belgium. Again, iceberg not as dominant as in Germany, butterhead the same, then the big part of Belgian endive, and yeah, the rest is not so important. Fresh cut, of course, fresh cut is a story, I think, also here. Yes, and Germany is not really dominant and not really the big force. We rejected it a long time ago, and it's coming. It's coming, and you can see that all the established markets like France, fresh cut salads, these are really just salads, like it says, it's not including vegetables. Fresh cut salads are growing in Germany year to year, because I will show you the age profile later. There's a good reason for it. But in the mature markets, it's not increasing anymore. Yeah, this is the age profile. And you can see that, well, all vegetables, they have an overaged customer, they have overaged customers. It's not better in leafy vegetables, but it's different in fresh cut salads. And the interesting thing is that it's not different in fresh cut vegetables, because fresh cut vegetables, you need one more processing step. You at least need to fry or to boil it. Very often you don't use it as a salad. So if you don't have time, and it's not a great help to have fresh cut vegetables, because you have to do something else in the second step, not just add the ready-made dressing over it. Yes, I probably spoke too long. We can see still very pronounced differences in consumption habits, even, as I showed you, between neighboring countries. Brassicas are probably not a good bet to set on. Leafy vegetables are doing much better, especially, yes, but it's becoming more diversified. And if we heard something this morning about wild leafy vegetables, okay, that would be even one specialty more. Okay, convenience, that remains an important market driver. But the theme was, what does the consumer want? And there's a little problem with this. The consumer doesn't exist. We have many, many different consumers, different consumer types, and sometimes even the same consumer wants one day convenience and the next day natural, homegrown, regional. And these are all things which we can see in the moment in Germany, that there is a really big hype for regional produce, regionally produced produce. And it's, in the moment, it seems to me, it's more important than organic. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Excellent.
Oops.